Joined as always by Clinton Boring. My name is Ryan Satkoviak. I think we are now officially halfway through our Spring Spotlight series here. We are back tonight talking Northwestern and Ohio State on the show this evening. Clinton, how are you?
I'm here, but I'm frustrated. I am tired of the back and forth seesaw. Here we go. Weather. I love Ohio, Ryan. It's a beautiful state.
Oh, it's
But
not.
damn, we have had multiple
Don't lie to
70,
people.
60, 70-degree days, and my grass is turning green, and then today it snows. Before I put my children to bed tonight, I couldn't see out my window because it was a whiteout. I have people in my or on Facebook of my family members and friends from back home, and they're like, "What snow level emergency were you under?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me right now? This is bullshit. Just give me back to the 55 plus, and then let's have a good time." Ryan, how are you?
Um, I'm day 2 into a cut, and I'm not gonna lie to you. I want to kill myself.
Are you still bleeding? Do you need a band-aid?
No, you know what I'm talking about.
What are you cutting? Taco Bell?
No, I'm trying to modulate my caloric intake, and
Okay.
all I have been thinking about, I haven't even really been thinking about anything specifically. I'm just like, I hate being hungry,
Uh-huh.
and I'm trying to enhance my self discipline by getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I have been uncomfortable all day, and this fucking bullshit spread your tiny meals out throughout the day might kill me. I might actually like commit a homicide.
So how do you typically eat then?
I mean, so like the biggest thing so my day to day, like during work days, it's really not going to change all that much. My issue is when I'm home, I don't do anything when I'm home. Like I don't fucking do anything outside of work. I sit on my ass, I go to the gym, I walk the dog, and that's pretty much it. So when I'm sitting at home and I get bored, I just snack.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to not do that. And I did not have a snack after dinner last night, and it just did not start today off on the right foot. And I only work until 12 today, so I've been home all day. I have been like guzzling water to try to keep the sense of something in my stomach. And not only am I hungry, I've peed like 17 times today.
Yeah, that'll happen.
I'm not going to make it. I'm trying to do like a 10 to 12 week thing. And
Oh
it's just,
God, 10 to
yeah,
12 weeks. Okay.
yeah, it's not going
One of my
well.
buddies, the guy that runs our college football dynasty that we're in, he does a 72-hour cleanse where he doesn't eat anything. He just drinks water.
Now, see, that's not,
One time a quarter.
one of my buddies did that and it like exploded his gallbladder.
Yeah, it just doesn't.
I don't think it actually exploded his gallbladder, but he had his gallbladder taken out, and his surgeon told him it was the worst gallbladder he has ever
Oh
seen in
gosh.
his. That's not what you want to hear from your whatever surgeon does
Yeah.
gallbladder removals. And he's like, I don't even know what would have caused it. And he's like, maybe it was my water fast. He did but he did it for like 9 days or something. I'm like, Erwin, you're an idiot.
Oh, it was
Anyway,
Irwin that did that.
yeah, it was Erwin.
Oh my
He had
goodness,
a real
Irwin.
mess. It looked like his gallbladder exploded inside of him. I saw a picture of it. It was grody.
Yeah, I like food too much. Like certainly I could go the route being a caloric deficit. I don't even think I need to be in a caloric deficit. It's just sometimes the food items I choose to eat could be better options, right? I just don't see the purpose in starving myself for 3 days straight and not. I mean, I
No,
guess
I
I know there are
agree.
people out there with religious things. I get that, but just separate, just to do
Yeah,
it.
just from like I'm gonna do a water fast because
Yeah,
it's
I'm
gonna
like,
reset my chi or something like that. I'm like,
like
no, it's
I
not.
can only imagine how effing bad my head would hurt. You can't have
I have
coffee either.
I have a headache right now. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, I do too. I've been fighting this cold for like 2 weeks. That Ryan. I don't know if you're ever gonna have kids, but for those out there who have kids, when germs come in your house, they don't like to leave. They just fester for like 2 to 3 weeks. And now I got my turn with this head cold, and I'm really quite tired of it. I'd like it to go away. But
That's not
anyways,
great.
cheers to you for your calorie deficit cut. Hopefully you survive. But
Yeah,
it's March Madness,
if
so
I'm
you're
not
gonna
here
want a
late,
few wings, man.
no, I mean I work all day Thursday, and
That's
maybe
fair.
Friday. Maybe Friday. I, Friday's gonna be tough. Fuck, I'm gonna hate Fridays.
California cauliflower wings. Not well, they might as well be California wings.
Yeah, I mean, I can figure something out. It doesn't have to be, I don't know, I'd make a protein pizza or something.
It sounds mildly enticing.
It's pretty good.
Protein.
You just make the crust with Greek yogurt and you don't put a shitload of toppings on it.
Xavier ate one of the Quest protein pizzas the other day at work.
No,
He's at my clinic now. I don't know if I told you. He switched over to my clinic, and he's like, that was not very good.
I don't think that I would do a store-bought one. If you make
that sounds horrible.
You make a homemade one, it's actually pretty good.
All right. Well, before we cut the shit and get to the main stuff, have you done, like, I don't think it's a trend, and I'm always behind on these things, but like people do, like, they finely ground chicken and make a crust out of that.
No, but I did see something on the internet today. It was like a chicken parm taco where somebody like flattened ground chicken, put it on a tortilla, and then like breaded just the chicken side and then face down like flash fried it on a pan. It looked pretty good.
Yeah, Leah's done that before. They're pretty good. But yeah, I've seen the ones for pizza, and that's just your crust. It's just ground chicken. Like, I think I could get behind that. I like chicken. I'd eat red sauce on chicken and cheese. Why not?
I think that'd be pretty good. I have seen stuff like that. I'm not like a big ground chicken guy. I did make, this was probably like a year or so ago, like imitation McDonald's McChickens using ground chicken and then just kind of like lightly breading it and air frying it. It was actually pretty good.
Yeah, I've seen some imitations of those, like Chick-fil-A and all those things. The air fryer has been a game changer for people everywhere.
Yeah, agreed.
We have our oven, when we bought this house, it comes with the air fryer just in it, and it
that's nice.
Makes things so much crispier.
Yep.
Versus
It cooks quicker. You don't have to wait for the oven to get hot.
Yep. Well, I'll sneak some of the boys' chicken nuggets every once in a while. When they're air fried versus baked, so much better air fried.
Yeah,
so
agreed. Yeah. Anything frozen, I will just air fry, and it tastes fantastic. It's really good. So yeah, if I'm not here on Wednesday or Thursday or whenever we do our second show this week, it's because I just decided to end it all and had a good run.
I will be full of wings, Ryan, on Thursday and Friday.
Yeah,
so
see,
Monday, I might have a torn apart asshole.
See, I'm kind of on a wing hiatus because every time I eat B-dubs, it's so salty. Not like salty, like there's so much sodium in it that I get really thirsty after the fact. And my stomach already hurts because I ate a shitload of wings, and then I'm chugging water to try to equilibrize my cells. And then my stomach just hurts because it's extra full because I chugged 2 liters of water to try to rehydrate myself. It's just not good.
So I don't do beat-ups. But you don't have roosters where you are.
I do love roosters.
You used to put one in Michigan, so.
There's one in Sylvania. It's like a 47-minute drive for me, but I will not be making that drive. I do love me some roosters, though. Yeah. Very good. Very good wings. We are talking tonight. 2 teams, kind of. I don't know if it's fair to say they're on the opposite end of the spectrum. But we do have a common connection here. The Fighting Chip Kellys, Northwestern, and Chip Kelly's old team, Ohio State. Continuing with our alphabetical theme here, we will start with Northwestern again. Guys, if you're watching this on YouTube live with us right now or in the future, you'll get both of those episodes tonight. If you are listening to the Northwestern show right now on our podcast feed, you can find the Ohio State one also on the podcast feed. Still splitting these up one at a time here. Officially at the halfway point. I think we'll have 5 more episodes after this. 4 for the Big Ten, and then Notre Dame will just be a solo episode because we're odd number teams with that. But starting with the Northwestern Wildcats, Clinton, another good season under David Braun last year. And I feel like they're looking to take a step forward in terms of their seriousness, their commitment to football, right? They're putting up big money to build a new on-campus stadium, completely redoing Ryan Field, throwing money at a national championship winning offensive coordinator who was in the NFL last year. But Clinton, kind of looking through some stuff for them. They took 16 transfers this year, which on the surface, if you're a team of, most other schools, that may not seem like a lot. But for a program with the academic prowess of Northwestern to take 16 transfers, that takes a significant commitment from the institution itself, the academic side, to get some of these kids admitted, especially the non-graduate transfer variety, because not all those credits are always going to transfer. And for schools like Northwestern, for Notre Dame, for Stanford, for Vanderbilt, that has long been a hindrance to getting transfers, is getting those academics credits to transfer over. So that way, I make the jokes all you want about they're not here to play school, whatever. But at these types of institutions, you need to be on track to graduate. So good for Northwestern for kind of taking that step this year. And when we're looking at these three things I'm watching for in spring practice, just that first one is going to be Chip Kelly and Aidan Chiles Clinton. Is it going to be Will Howard 2024, or is it going to be Dante Moore 1.0, 2.0? And what I mean by that is Chip Kelly's last year at UCLA. Dante Moore was a true freshman quarterback, highly touted 5-star, and he did not look the part. And as we have seen from Dante Moore since he has been at Oregon, that was not necessarily a harbinger of who he was as a quarterback here. You know, he had a Chip Kelly comes in after a rough year with the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't think that's a Chip Kelly thing. I think that's just a dysfunctional franchise. And, you know, Clinton, he's coming back to the conference where he won a national championship just over a year ago with Ohio State. Looking back at that 2024 season for the Buckeyes, they were 29th in total offense, 12th in scoring offense. Good numbers for sure, but they were tied for third in yards per play, 6.9 yards per play. And I think that offense certainly took another step forward in the playoff compared to where they were in the regular season. We talked about it at the time. I distinctly remember having this conversation with you on this show. The hallmark of that Chip Kelly offense has been his ability to scheme up running plays. That Buckeyes team, not really lighting the world on fire from just a pure volume standpoint, only 57th in rushing yards per game, but they were 27th in the country at 5 yards per carry. And talking about how is this going to translate to Northwestern, let's be real with each other. The offense he had in Columbus is more talented than what he will have in Evanston. But there are some nice pieces to work with, particularly at the running back position. Clinton, did you know Cam Porter is still a college running back?
I did.
Hit that unpause button, unmute button there, man.
I did.
He only played 4 games last year, got a medical redshirt. He comes back, but he is coming back into a crowded running back room, Clinton, because they're bringing back both Caleb Komalafe, almost hit the century mark last year, 941 yards and 11 touchdowns on 190 carries, and Joseph Hyman, who had 99 carries, 486 yards and a touchdown last year. They also bring in Florida State transfer Gavin Sawchuk. He had 109 carries, 486 yards, and 8 scores last year. I am very curious to see, this is maybe more of a big picture question, not specifically quarterback, but how Chip Kelly schemes up this running game with a running quarterback, but all these running backs at his disposal. Not to be outdone, they do bring back some talent at wide receiver. Griffin Wilde, one of the better receivers in the Big Ten, really excited to see the jump he takes in year 2 in this conference after being at South Dakota State prior. He had 71 catches, 880 yards, and 8 scores last year. They also bring back Hayden Elegon II, 37 catches, 521 yards, and 3 touchdowns last year. Came on a little bit at the end of the season. So they provide some good experience options out wide for Aidan Chiles. And he's certainly going to need that, man. He did not have a dearth of options at Michigan State last year, right? Big play McCray, Krishan McCray, Amari Kelly, obviously Nick Marsh at his disposal. It just did not click in that Jonathan Smith offense. The key for this Northwestern offense this year, Clinton, they were 98th in scoring and total offense last year, in 92nd in yards per play. It was not an explosive offense. You know, Aidan Chiles was somewhat better at taking care of the ball last year than he was the year prior, but for whatever reason, it just didn't work with Jonathan Smith, which I think was surprising to both of us, considering this was a guy Jonathan Smith recruited to Oregon State, brought with him to Michigan State to be the starter. What is Aidan Chiles going to look like this year? Is having that more, you know, I don't know how you would classify the Chip Kelly offense, you know, power spread, run pass option, is that going to unlock something in Aidan Chiles' game? Is that experience that Chip Kelly has with quarterbacks with a similar profile to him going to unlock something in this game? Or is it going to flame out like he did with Dante Moore in 2023? I think that is going to be the key to really this Northwestern season in 2026. They were fine in 2025 when Preston Stone wasn't throwing interceptions. But is there another gear here that they can find with Aidan Chiles?
Yeah, I'm looking at 2 things here. And one is, you already mentioned the running backs, right? The stable of running backs that they're going to be sitting in here with. Komalafe, Hyman, Sawchuk, and Cam Porter returning. What was a big thing that Chip Kelly utilized at Ohio State when the year he was there? It was Judkins and Henderson. A huge part of it was the two-back system. Well, he's got 4 nice running backs who are going to be sitting on this team this year. So utilization of the run game, I would expect to be extremely heavy for Northwestern this year. But when you look back to last year, Ryan, they were pretty solid on the ground. 160.2 yards per game with 4.6 per carry average. The problem was their passing game, where it was 185.9 yards per game. Now, again, you're limited because of Preston Stone. And when he didn't turn to stone and actually turned in a solid performance, it was a little better. Now, you've already alluded to what can they get out of Chiles. Chip Kelly's pretty innovative, man. He comes up with some pretty unique things to get his players in positions. Think back to the national title game where Ohio State ran that fake jet motion with Jeremiah Smith, and they snapped it, and he curled back around wide open the end zone. He comes up with a lot of different things to get his playmakers the ball, so I would envision that that's only going to help Aidan Chiles. If you look back to when Chip Kelly was with Ohio State, if we're looking at total yardage differences, Northwestern, good Lord. I listened to the Nebraska show earlier. That's why it's on my brain. Northwestern had 346.1 yards per game last year on offense. When Chip Kelly was last with Ohio State, now again, no asterisk, the players they had versus what Northwestern has, they averaged 429.4 yards per game. I'm not saying Northwestern's coming out and putting up nearly 450 yards a game on offense, but I certainly believe you could see a step up to maybe like a 380, 390, put another 40, 50 yards per game on the field with Chip Kelly there. And then again, that stable of running backs. That Northwestern is a team that's going to want to control the game, keep your offense off the field. Look what they did to Michigan to be able to hang around in that game. I expect a lot more of that with Chip Kelly this year.
Yeah, and they were good at running. I mean, you touched on it, good at running the ball last year, and we'll kind of get into point two with the offensive line here in 1 second. But what I'm curious to see, too, with this is the guys they have in the backfield were not necessarily threats in the passing game. Sawchuk, 13 catches, 121 yards a year ago. Komalafe had only 11 catches for 60 yards, and Hyman, 21 catches, led the way, but only 118 yards. So they don't necessarily have that explosive pass game threat out of the backfield. I'm curious to see, especially with the volume of good running backs they have, if that's something that maybe they try to work into the game plan a little bit more this spring. But speaking of that offensive line, point two I'm looking at is, can this O-line still be stellar? Jesus. Say what you want about this explosivity of the Northwestern offense. I'm good with words. We were just talking about they were 89th in yards per play last year. Yards per carry was a little bit more modest at 42nd. But their offensive line kept Preston Stone upright, and they kept the chains moving. They were 20th in the nation in average time of possession per game last year and 38th in third down conversion percent. They only allowed 17 sacks in 13 games. New offensive line coach Tim Drevno was with Chip Kelly when he was at UCLA and at Ohio State. He was the O-line coach for 2 years at UCLA, and then he was a quality control assistant with Ohio State in 2024. I think he was with Texas last year as an analyst. There's going to be a little bit of turnover on this offensive line, but we don't necessarily yet know how much turnover, Clinton. The big kind of key piece coming back is left guard. He was an all Big Ten honorable mention last year, and Ezomo Oratokhai, I don't know if I pronounced that right. I probably should have looked that up. He comes back at left guard. That'll be a huge anchor on the interior of this line. The question is going to be at center. Jackson Carsello, he may or may not be out of eligibility. He took a red shirt in 2021. He only played 4 games in 2022, and it sounds like they're looking for a waiver for him to get a 6th year. I'm assuming a medical red shirt for that 2022 season. So if he comes back, that's the interior, 2 of the 3 interior spots on your line that are back, but there's going to be some turnover at guard. Left guard, Caleb Tiernan, and left tackle Caleb Tiernan and right tackle Martez Lewis have graduated, as did right guard Evan Biernston. So I think a lot of this hinges on Carsello. If he's back, this offensive line should still be in a pretty good position because they had some guys who played last year, a fair amount, who are coming back. At right guard, look for Anthony Biersa. He played 13 games, though mostly on special teams last year. He's going to be in a competition with Jace Borcherding, who did not play last year. He took a red shirt the year before that, but just reading some stuff today, it sounds like in preseason camp, he was a guy who was impressing people with his physicality. Also look for true freshman Owen Fours and redshirt sophomore Idris Cotton to be in that battle as well. But despite losing both tackles, they should still be in a pretty good spot at that position because of a returner and a transfer portal. One tackle spot likely going to come down to Deuce McGuire. He played 11 games and had 2 starts last year as a redshirt junior. All 221 snaps he played were at right tackle. Look for him to ascend to that spot. And at the left tackle position, he played right tackle at Oklahoma State last year, but they bring in Grant Seagren, who was I think he was the 5th best offensive tackle prospect in the transfer portal. He played all 12 games as a sophomore at Oklahoma State. He did not allow a sack in 403 pass blocking snaps per PFF. So Clinton, even though you're turning over potentially 3 of the starting offensive line positions, you are bringing in a bona fide Big 12 starter who was outstanding last year. You're replacing your last year right tackle with a guy who started 2 games and played a fair amount for you last year. Really, you only have to solidify one of those positions then, though. Again, if the center does not get his 6th year of eligibility, there is going to be a little bit more question on that interior of the offensive line. And just, I mean, listen, talking about that Chip Kelly offense, if you have a good, strong base in the trenches, you're going to have a lot of success.
One key thing that Aidan Chiles is probably wishing he had at Michigan State. Only allowed 17 sacks in 13 games.
No kidding.
Boy, I tell you what. He'd probably have a lot more progression and obviously stat output if he would have only been sacked 17 times in 13 games. So that's the big thing. Protect him. Give him a chance. He's likely, he's got 2 years of eligibility left, I would assume.
I believe that is correct.
So that's another benefit for Northwestern here is you're not looking at a 1-year piece most likely. You're going to get 2 years here. Protect the kid. Keep him upright. Let him develop, and let's see what he's got. And, of course, your offensive line just...
no, I think he's only got 1 year. He played a lot in 2023 at Oregon State. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, he played more than...
All right. Well,
4
you're getting him for a year, so give him a chance. I'm sure he'll find a way to get a 5th year. Everybody does now. You also need your offensive line to play well to run the ball. So eager to see how this all shakes out, but mostly from the standpoint of Chiles and just him having a chance to be upright and throwing the ball.
Looking at the defense, Clinton, the thing I'm looking at here is the reinforcements supplementing the returners. Again, we talked about a pretty big transfer class for Northwestern. 6 of these guys coming in on defense. They were good on defense last year from a counting stats perspective, 23rd nationally in scoring defense, 31st in total D, but they're tied for 66th in yards per play. And that's mostly Clinton because, again, their offense possessed the ball well, but there were some big plays, man. Northwestern gave up they had the 4th fewest average plays per game run against them, which is why their yards per play was a little bit higher than their counting stats. 5 of their 10 leading tacklers from last year have departed. That would be linebacker Mac Uline, safety Garner Wallace, cornerback Fred Davis, defensive tackle Carmine Bastone, and defensive end Aiden Hubbard. He's the big loss on that defense. We'll talk about the losses on the defensive line, but he was a big one when Anto Sacco was hurt a year ago. He really stepped up his game. He led the team with 7.5 sacks last year. And the aforementioned Anto Sacco was the big loss. Really I think they lost a tight end to Ohio State, but he was really the big one guy that they lost. He's transferring to Texas A&M. This is a defense that did not create a lot of havoc last year, Clinton. They did get after the quarterback. 23 sacks on the season, but they only forced 9 interceptions. 4 of those were by Uline, who, again, is out the door. So that's a lot of that havoc creating that is no longer on the team. However, the good, particularly in the secondary, they do return a fair amount. Starting safety Robert Fitzgerald, he was their leading tackler last year. He actually led the Big Ten in solo tackles last year. He is back, as is nickelback Braden Turner. Safety Damon Walters, he was a 2024 Big Ten honorable mention, but had a lot of injury issues and missed a fair amount of time last season. Look for him to be the other starting safety. Cornerback Josh Fusel, he played a fair amount last year. He was tied for 7th on the team in tackles, and they brought in some big-time relative reinforcements in the transfer portal. Cornerback Brendan, they have a lot of Brendans on this team. That's also something that I learned. Diaz Fernandez from Central Michigan, he had 4 pass breakups in the bowl game against Northwestern, kind of a little tryout there, but for the season, 2 interceptions and 8 pass breakups overall. They also bring in Monte Pate from Weber State, technically. He was a first-team All-Big Sky player last year, and he's 6'3", so that's a body type that will transfer well to the Big Ten. So this should be a very good secondary. Should be good at linebacker again, even with Uline heading out. They bring back weak side linebacker and their 3rd leading tackler from last year, Braden Bruce. They bring in linebacker Kobe McKenzie from Oklahoma. He had 23 tackles and a sack last year. He's going to compete for that starting middle linebacker job with former Iowa State transfer Jack Sadowski and former, I think he was a 4-star recruit, Nigel Glover. Big one here is on the defensive line again. We talked about the Saka transfer and the Aiden Hubbard graduation. They do bring back Michael Kilbane on the edge. He had 3.5 sacks last year. They also bring back starting defensive tackle Braden Flakes. He started off 13 games last year, had 18 tackles. 2 transfer portal additions. They bring in Central Florida defensive end Jamal Johnson. He is more of a run stuffer than a pass rusher. He did not have a sack last year. He had pretty good PFF run defense grade for whatever that's worth. Also bring in Ohio State transfer Dominic Kirks. So can one of those guys pick up the slack from Saka and Hubbard leaving? Or is it going to be Kilbane who picks up a little bit more of the sack? But again, 23 sacks a year ago as a team, and I think more than half of them, I didn't count off the top of my head, are out the door. You get 7.5 from Hubbard, 2.5 from Bastone. I'm trying to do math real quick in my head here. Saka had 3, so yeah, more than half your sacks are out the door. So for a defense that gave up, some big plays last year and was not necessarily the best at creating havoc, can either one of those portal guys or one of the returners step up and become a bona fide playmaker, game wrecker on this defense?
I'm looking at Kilbane, especially with Saka and Hubbard gone. Those are the 2 big names at defensive end. 3.5 sacks, chance to build on that coming into 2026. Almost said 2025. Goodness, we're past that. We say it all the time. You win the trenches, you win the game. We know Northwestern typically is going to put out a good offensive line, and they're pretty solid on D-line. So they're going to need good production from Kilbane to generate pressure on opposing quarterbacks for this season to go the way they want it to and continue to improve and put themselves not really in the running for the Big Ten championship, but just to be competitive in this new Big Ten that you and I have talked about.
And listen, man, they got a weird schedule this year. They're gonna need depth because they have a week 2 bye, and this is one of those years where I think there's only one bye, so they're playing 11 straight weeks to end the season, if my math is correct here.
Man, if you get hit with an early bye, just as any team,
yeah,
your depth is going to be challenged, especially if you're a team that's going to be pushing into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long, long road, man. You see that sometimes in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
You get these teams like a week 4, week 5 bye. That is a long-ass haul to get to the end of the season.
Not only that, Clinton, but 4 of their last 5 games are on the road. Halloween, they are at Oregon. The week after that, they host Iowa. The week after that, at Ohio State. Week after that, at Minnesota. Close the season at Illinois. So
that's brutal.
Not super long road trips in there necessarily for those last 3, but
still on the road.
Yeah,
against those teams.
Yep. For those last 5. Like if this is going to be a bowl team again, which I think, if you make a bowl game with that schedule, that would be fantastic. You're going to have to go 3-0 in your non-conference. You're going to have to beat South Dakota State. You're going to have to beat Colorado. You're going to have to beat Ball State. And then looking at the other 4 games on the front half of the schedule, you're going to have to take 3 of 4 from Indiana, Penn State, Michigan State, and Rutgers. It's going to be tough, man.
Yep. It's going to be fun to see Chiles get his rematch with Michigan State, though.
No, yeah, and listen, if he takes a big step forward this year, they have enough talent on this offense that productive, right, this isn't just theoretical talent. It's not like when we were talking about Minnesota, the Auburn transfers. Like, this kid was a really good high school prospect. Let's see what he can do with more opportunity. There are guys on this offense who made plays for them last year. They just need the quarterback to take care of the ball, and they need a little bit more explosivity, whether that's, Wildy or Komalafe in year 2, or if it's Aidan Chiles in the run game. But if he takes a big step forward in this Chip Kelly offense, they will be an interesting team to watch down the stretch. They could potentially make some noise in the playoff hunt. Not necessarily me saying they're going to make a playoff run, but could they ruin Oregon or Ohio State season, right? These 2 teams that have difficult schedules, who might have 1 or 2 losses already at that point. You lose a November game to Northwestern or a late October game to Northwestern, that's not a stain you want on your schedule. No disrespect to Northwestern, but that's a tough loss to overcome.
Mm-hmm. Certainly.
Thank you for listening to our Northwestern episode. That is a fantastic transition to our Ohio State episode, Clinton. a very good year for the Buckeyes last year, depending on who you ask. I'm sure if you ask some of the fan base, they will say it was a failure because they did not win the Big Ten, um, nor did they win a playoff game. So, yeah, man, I'm just going to let you kind of riff on this because this is your lane and I'm going to stay out of it.
Disappointing end of the season. Every Buckeye fan will tell you that. But hopefully, some of them have taken their heads out of their asses in the past 2 months since they've been into the offseason. You know how the portal started. Fans were in an absolute panic. Well, Buckeyes are going to spend money. They won't get anybody. Well, you guys tune into us, obviously, because Clinton is the Buckeye guy on the show. However, following Ohio State beat writers, and especially Austin and Berm, the Buckeyes got some really great additions in the portal class this year that they're going to be excited about. If you are one of those people who tunes out college football in the offseason, what you find the Buckeyes put out on this field this year is going to be really, really exciting. So we start off with, though, the offensive line for Ohio State. They return per Berm. They're returning 34 starts this year. So it's a very experienced offensive line, guys, and that's extremely important heading into a season in which you have a much, much more stout schedule than what you had last year. And some will say that's part of the reason Ohio State, when they got to Indiana and they got to Miami in the playoff, that's where they kind of faltered, was they weren't prepared enough on offense to go against those types of defenses. So they're returning a very experienced offensive line. Many people, though, are asking the question, are they going to shuffle it up at all? You know, last year you had Austin Saraveld, left tackle, Luke Montgomery, left guard, Carson Hinsman at center, Tegrita Shabola was your primary starter at right guard, and then Daniels out at right tackle. So with those last two performances, many people weren't happy, so they're wondering, coming into spring, are we going to see anything different? Could it be Ian Moore, who played some at left tackle, gets a shot to play left tackle this year? We move Austin Saraveld to right tackle, put Philip Daniels, who played right tackle all last year, at right guard. Or do we go vice versa? Daniels stays right tackle, Saraveld right guard. Saraveld, if you're looking at more of a forward projection for him to the NFL, it's likely a guard. I think that's more of his natural spot. But it sounds like, coming through only 2 spring practices, as Ohio State's now on spring break, it sounds like that OSU is going to plan on, through the spring at least, keeping Saraveld at left tackle and Daniels at right tackle. Meanwhile, Carson Hinsman, he has the lock on center, as he should. Multi-year starter there now. That's exactly what you want when you have to go into an environment week 2 in Texas. Luke Montgomery sounds like he's going to stay at left guard. So then you see the battle becomes at right guard. Is that a Josh Padilla? Does he take the spot there? Does Gabe Van Sickle make a push? And then you look at freshman Sam Greer. He's an incoming freshman. Can he push himself into the 2 deep? Does sophomore, I believe probably redshirt freshman, Carter Lowe, does he have anything to say in the mix? They've been repping him some at guard. As I said, a lot of fans, you guys lost your faith in him in 2025. They were a strong piece for that team. If you don't have that team or that offensive line, they're not pushing through a regular season 12-0. They gave up, I believe, 5 sacks through the regular season, Ryan. That is fantastic. Mm-hmm. I know their schedule wasn't overly impressive through the regular season. That's only 5 sacks for an O-line. They were, I believe, Final 5 for Joe Moore finalist offensive line. Now, you get into the bowl games or the postseason, and there's no excuse. You played much better teams. You went against teams who knew how to find your weak spot and attack you, but they gave up 11 sacks in their last 2 games. That is horrific, and that's kind of that bitter, bad taste that Ohio State fans are left with in their mouth coming into this offseason, which is why they wanted change. Change isn't always good, guys. The grass isn't always greener on the other side of the fence. Wouldn't you like your guys to come in who have 34 combined starts, being an extremely veteran O-line, to protect Julian Sayin? Wouldn't you want that heading into Austin week 2? I sure as hell would. Mm-hmm. When you bring Oregon into the shoe, when you bring Michigan into the shoe, when you go to USC, there's a lot of games on this year. You're going to be real thankful that you don't have to shake up this offensive line. Also, to counter that, you got to be able to facilitate a run game. And all these guys proved last year that Ohio State can still run the ball. If you look at what they ran for last year, I think it was 154 yards a game. That was only 12 yards. I know it's only 12 yards. It's over a first down, but Only 12 yards difference from what they ran with Chip Kelly when we were all so impressed with this run game that they had. So it really wasn't that bad, folks. You just look at the stats. I know the games sometimes say a different story. The other key addition for this offensive line is Arthur Smith. He's going to be offensive coordinator, but he's an offensive line guy. Look for him to kind of step back in and shape this run game maybe back a little more to what we felt with the Chip Kelly game plan. And I'm not talking Chip Kelly Michigan game plan. I'm talking thinking Chip Kelly game plan in the postseason, how they ran the ball so well and what they utilized. I think Arthur Smith is going to be a huge addition for this team, as we said in the coaching carousel. Ryan Day now has 2 coordinators from the NFL who he can just trust and let them do their thing. And he doesn't have to worry about it. So I think it's a huge addition, Ryan. I look for this offensive line to, again, be a top 5 to 10 offensive line in the country this year.
Do you think, and I don't need an entire dissertation on this topic, but do you think that the relative struggles in the run game last year was more an offensive line issue or more the backs just weren't as good issue?
I think it could be a mix of both, but I think going from Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, that's huge. I mean, especially you're playing 2 freshmen in Bo Jackson and Isaiah West. Peoples didn't really pan out and take the step that everyone thought he was going to. C.J. Donaldson was viable, but we knew what he was. He was pretty much a short yardage guy. You're stepping in 2 freshman running backs who have never pass blocked at the college level. Trying is great. Being able to execute it while trying is big time. Travion Henderson was one of the best pass blocking running backs I've seen since Ezekiel Elliott. Dude is not afraid to stick his nose in. So I think I would say a little more, Ryan, that it was more that the change in the running backs affected the run game.
Makes sense to me.
And also think about the explosivity that Henderson had. Bo Jackson and Isaiah West weren't going to match that. If Henderson hit a hole, made a move, he was gone. You're not going to catch him. Judkins not quite as explosive, but we'll see if those guys can improve upon that. If you guys haven't been following, Isaiah West and Bo Jackson are limited in the spring. They both had shoulder surgeries. They're going through all the non-contact stuff, but nothing with contact. Perhaps the biggest thing that Ohio State fans blame for the downfall of the season last year was the untimely timing of Ryan Hartline taking the USF job. Excuses, excuses, excuses. You know what? Excuses are like assholes. You all have them and they stink. So, yes, I'm sure it affected Ohio State in a way when Brian Hartline left. Now the panic, though, is coming into 2026 when they replaced him with Cortez Hankton. Ryan, I remember not too long ago when Ohio State hired Matt Patricia, and I know this is a defensive coordinator versus a wide receivers coach. The meltdown from Ohio State fans and even the beat writers. And the fans, because of what a couple people said, did not like this hire of Hankton. Well, newsflash, guys. Were you going to like anybody who replaced Brian Hartline? Probably not, because he's pretty hard to live up to. So he's now gone to USF. The IOSU wide receiver room is remodeled. Mylan Graham, off to Notre Dame. Porter, off to Notre Dame. Rogers, USF with Brian Hartline. And Jeremiah Smith is obviously the key name that returns in the wide receiver room. He's the best wide receiver in the country. There is no argument with that. Brandon Ennis returns. Those are your only 2 returning guys with production from 2025, Ryan. From a team who has been known for their wide receivers since Brian Hartline, even before Brian Hartline, but really since Hartline took over. You have 2 knowns, and you have quite a few unknowns. And that's what we're going to talk about here in a second with these guys. But you feel comfortable having Smith obviously on the outside and then Ennis to work your slot. Ennis, it was variable what he got last year. He didn't get a ton of targets here and there. People were saying you don't need to play him. Like, well, guys, you just got to learn to distribute the ball a little differently. And now that Sands in his second year of starting, I expect Ennis to be able, he's a captain. He's going to lead this team. He will be better this year. Well, Carnell Tate's gone. And the Buckeyes, like I said, lose Porter and Graham. And everybody's like, well, what the hell are we going to do? Why didn't we pay these guys? Well, you probably can't pay those guys the money they were looking for the increase, despite how good Porter may end up being, because you paid a lot of money for 6'6" Chris Henry Jr. to come here. He's going to be looking to be your wide receiver, too, from day one. Maybe a huge premier red zone target for you with that height. Chris Henry looks pretty solid so far in spring camp from what I heard. Jaquaden Guilford is another guy to keep an eye on. He's another 5-star freshman coming in this year. I think he might actually be better than Chris Henry Jr. We'll see. They also brought in veteran Kyle Parker from LSU and Devin McEwen from UTSA. Hartline got the best out of his wide receivers. Of the ones who played, he never had a huge rotation of guys, but he would run about 5 guys typically. Can Hankton keep this wide receiver room success going? That's what he's going to be measured against, and it's damn near impossible. It's like Kalen DeBoer following Nick Saban. The one good news is Hankton, is familiar with Parker. He recruited him in his LSU days. McEwen has a ton of speed, so do we see him more in like a gadget, like a role in the return game? It sounds like the first 2 practices, though, that Parker and McEwen impressed a lot with both route running and their speed. Another name to keep an eye on is freshman Legend Bay. Sounds like he's getting some work with the running backs, but they talked about him as a Curtis Samuel type role. So could he have an effect as a wide receiver as well? Ryan, my question to you is, does Ohio State, with the departure of everything that went on, do they still have the best wide receiver room in the Big Ten in the country? Does Jeremiah Smith carry that much weight to now carry a lot of unproven?
Yeah, that's the question, because it almost feels like just like him in and of itself is like you could just have a wide receiver room of 1, and it's like, well, that's the best wide receiver room in the country. He's going to beat just about anyone in the country. But I even looking at last year's team, and we saw this a lot when Carnell Tate got hurt, there just wasn't a lot coming up to help, right? It was pretty disappointing for
David
the hype.
Adolph.
Yeah, the hype that the Ohio State receiver room gets, and all the talk about 5-star this, 5-star that, top 100 player this, you expect them to be just beaming with guys who just step in and produce, and that just didn't really happen last year. And now you're in a situation where your number 2 receiver is a guy in Brandon Innes who I don't think it's fair to call him his career Julian Fleming because he's did more than Julian last year than Julian Fleming really did in his entire career. But I mean, his quote unquote breakout year, well, I guess it's still really not fair to call it a breakout year considering he had 2 guys in front of him, but 36 catches, 7.5 yards per catch. That's not great, right? You're putting a lot on whether it's Guilford or Chris Henry Jr. to come in and be a player. And Clinton, God forbid, Jeremiah Smith gets hurt. What is this wide that? I think that's where the question comes down to. When we're talking about who's the best wide receiver room in the Big Ten, if you take the top guy away from each of the contenders, let's say they get hurt. Maybe it's a soft tissue. I'm not talking long-term injury. It's a soft tissue thing. They're out 4 to 6 weeks. What wide receiver room do you then have the most confidence in? I don't know that my answer would be Ohio State. And I get that with the guys that they had go out the door, you needed to get bodies from the transfer portal to have a full wide receiver room and guys who've played college football, so you're not just relying on incoming freshmen and guys who've been there but maybe haven't played a ton. But it was kind of jarring for me to see them go out and pull transfer wide receivers because it's always felt like it's been plug and play there.
Hartline doesn't do a whole lot of I don't know if he did any transfer wide receivers. That was his pitch, right? You're going to come here and commit to me, and I'm going to develop you. And if you're good enough, and if you block well enough, you'll get on the field. And if you're not, then you'll leave. But he did not bring in transfer guys. That was his thing. So obviously he had to when he went to USF to help finalize the roster. But Hankton already, Ohio State didn't have an option this year. And the rumor was even if Hartline stayed, it was highly unlikely that Porter and Graham were staying anyways. They were going to leave. They kind of saw the writing on the wall with Chris Henry coming in and all the money they're shelling out to him. So I agree with you, man. If Smith goes down, hopefully it doesn't. But if he does, you better hope it's week 5 and know that Chris Henry Jr. is already starting to prove himself, or Guilford to prove himself.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what the transfers do. Because what did Rogers followed Hartline to USF, and Porter and Graham went to a team where they're playing with potentially the best quarterback in the nation, with a receiver room that for the last 7 years hasn't really done much of anything, but it's probably at its high point of the Marcus Freeman era. So they're not exactly going into situations where they're guaranteed playing time. Porter especially, because he had surgery in the offseason, and it sounds like he's not really going to be a participant in spring ball. But it at least just kind of like, I don't think they've started spring practice yet. I think they start spring practice later this week, but at least it sounds like from off-season workouts that Mylan Graham has been exceptionally impressive. So that's just going to be interesting to see what those transfers do away from Ohio State versus what the non-Jeremiah Smith guys do at Ohio State. And I don't know, maybe no one really steps up and they just spam the Jeremiah Smith button and he has 115 catches for 1,900 yards and wins the Heisman Trophy. I don't know. Wouldn't surprise me.
Sweet. He'd need something big. He needs a Devonta Smith-esque season to get it. I think at this point in time, he'd rather just take another natty. So now we flip the other side of the ball, man. Defense. What a fantastic defense they had last year. Best in the country. Tons of talent. A lot of it going to the NFL. A lot of it coming back, and a lot of it coming via the portal. Despite losing Caden McDonald, Sonny Styles, Lorenzo Styles, Arvell Reese. Now, Lorenzo won't be, but those other ones I mentioned, they'll all be first-round picks, maybe top 10 picks. I think it's Caleb Downs, man. Replacing Downs is the biggest piece that's lost. He's been arguably the best defensive player in college football for the past 2 years. If you listen to certain draft scouts, he might be the best player in the 2026 draft. I think it's debatable between him and Jeremiah Love. The key thing is for Ohio State, Jalen McClain returns in the safety room to lead. Might be fitting in more of that Caleb Downs type role. Last year, McClain stepped in, first-time starter, 42 solo tackles with 3 pass deflections. Still obviously learning and adjusting to the Matt Patricia defense. But Ohio State had to go portaling to get some new guys in the room. Due again, 2 departures. And apparently, listening in a little more, it sounds like Ohio State had a lot of the departures, especially on the D-line, because Matt Patricia's looking for certain guys, right? He's now inked a multi-year deal to stick with Ohio State. He wants different guys than what they had with Jim Knowles. So that's where a lot of these guys left. So a big name that they brought in, the first safety I believe they brought in was Earl Little Jr. He was second from Florida State, second team All-ACC in 2025. He posted 33 solo tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 4 interceptions, and 2 pass deflections. Yes, guys, I did not mention total tackles. I was just going over solo. And then another big name, Terry Moore, coming in from Duke. Now, if you guys don't recognize that name, it's because he tore his ACL at the end of the 2024 season, and he missed the entire 2025 season. But in 2024, he was second team ACC. Let's see here. He had 71 tackles, 4 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, 6 pass breakups before he tore his ACL in the bowl game. If the Buckeyes can get him back to full strength, they might have struck gold. He actually had a higher PFF grade in 2024 than Caleb Downs did. Let's see where they kind of line up. All these safeties, Ohio State again is going to kind of flex and use more of the 3 safety look, which I think a lot of NFL teams are going to, so I'm sure college teams will follow. Where do you see each one roll? Does McClain come in? Does he take more of the Caleb Downs role? Is that more of a Moore role? Or is that an Earl Little role? From what I read from your boy Cameron, Moore is a true playmaker on the back end. So how they move all these guys around obviously is up to Matt Patricia, but it'll be really interesting to see what they have there. For the years of Knowles, it was always joked with Ohio State's a safety-driven defense. So we'll see again how much of an impact these guys have. Ryan, you can comment on the down stuff, but just your general of the 3 of the guys I mentioned, McDonald, Styles, Reese, and Downs, who do you think is the biggest impact on Ohio State's defense losing from 25 heading into 26?
I mean, in a vacuum, Downs is he the best player? Just found this channel. And you fan. Hope we can develop a QB. Aaron, if you just joined in and you missed the entire Northwestern talk, I'm sorry. Find us in your podcast feed tomorrow morning, or you can watch the YouTube video. We did.
As soon as the video ends, you can just rewind to the front.
Yeah,
check us out. We appreciate you, man. Hopefully you'll follow us on YouTube and follow us on the Twitter.
Thanks for being here. I think like the football IQ perspective, Downs is hard to discount 100%. Just because he's that chess piece, right? You can kind of put him wherever. Do you worry at all though about? So Ohio State were they mostly like kind of like nickel base last year, where they're just running 2 linebackers out, or did they do?
Most times they did not have 3 linebackers.
Do you worry about, especially with a scheme like Patricia's, having to replace both linebackers? Because that seems not great.
I do. I think, especially when they're both top 10 picks and they're just athletic freaks. However, Again, you can't replace him right away. It'll take time. But what they have sitting behind them, especially Sincere Johnson, who's a freshman this year, he is another Arvell Reese type mold, man. He looks like a genetic freak. However, it's the experience.
Yeah, I think because you look at the guy, I can't remember the fucking kid's name. Who was the first their first big linebacker that Laurinaitis signed? Some white kid from Oklahoma.
Peyton Pierce from
Texas. Peyton Pierce.
Texas Tornado.
Texas. I like him. I like Pettyjohn a lot too. They got some players in there, but
then there's Alford as well, who was high 4, I think low 5 in some areas.
But with a scheme like that, right? Like your guy with the NFL background, you need to have a high level of football IQ, and that is just stuff that you get by playing.
Absolutely. Yeah, Ryan, Sincere Johnson is coming in at 6'3", 228 pounds as a 18-year-old freshman.
He's probably going to be a first-round pick in 3 years, regardless of what he does this year.
Yes, dude, coming in. Now, again, it's tough to be a freshman and play a ton and have a major impact. As Ryan said, it's not just safety that needs IQ. It's all your guys, especially your linebackers, to pick out what they see and make calls and change the defense. So it'll be interesting with 3 younger guys. Obviously, Pierce played a fair amount last year. I'm blanking on the young man's name right now, but they brought a linebacker in from Wisconsin who figures to play as part of their four-man role.
Allegro?
Yes. Yep. He'll play a key cog here. I believe Pettyjohn is the one that's out for spring. Again, nothing major. He'll be ready to go for summer. But it's certainly a young group. Matt Patricia, the one thing that Ohio State players raved about last year is how well he educates and teaches. So we'll see what Ohio State can figure out here on the defensive side of the ball, but certainly losing Caleb Downs he's a generational type player to the NFL. It'll be something they got to adapt to.
I'm not going to pay attention to Ohio State this spring. I'm sure you'll be excited to watch them this spring, though.
Plan is to go to the spring game and take Owen for his first year. It'll be Elliott's 3rd year and Owen's first year, barring weather, as long as it's nice.
It's probably still going to be snowing then.
I hope not, man. I would be really bummed.
That is all for today. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. Thank you, Aaron, our new friend. Nice to meet you, officially, I guess. We'll be back Wednesday or Thursday. Pay attention in the Twitter feed at ITP CFB. That is dependent on Clinton, whatever your name is.
If Ryan has his alphabet right, he can tell you which teams we are going to
go
over.
Well, thank you for bolding out the teams we've already done. You made it easy on me. This is going to be a big episode, guys. Penn State and Oregon later this week. Should be fun. I'm excited for it. You should be excited for it, too. Thank you, everyone. We will see you at some point later this week.
Enjoy March Madness, folks.
Oh, yeah. That's why we're probably going to do it Wednesday, because there's basketball on Thursday. Okay, there we go.